Today is the Battle of the Batmans, and I am arguing for Batfleck. How far will that get me? What's up, Story Geeks? On today's podcast, Michael Gordon from the ESO Network and from the comic Tiki Zombie joins Justin Weaver, Sandra Demas, and me, Jay Sherer, to battle it out, have a nerd fight over who's the best Batman. Justin will be arguing on behalf of Christian Bale. Sandra will be arguing on behalf of Adam West from the 66 Batman TV series. And I will be arguing for Ben Affleck. To hear more Story Geeks and their opinions about who's the best Batman, like blogs from Ashley and Anthony, or to share your own thoughts with us on who your favorite Batman is, head on over to thestorygeeks.com. While you're there, we'd love it if you become a supporter. If you support the Story Geeks on Patreon, you'll get access to all of our premium content, including aftercasts and audiobooks. On today's aftercasts, Mike Gordon, our moderator for today, will be giving us his thoughts on the best Batman. Become a premium supporter and unlock access to that premium content right now. Thanks for listening in. The Story Geeks podcast is produced by the Reclamation Society.
Hey Story Geeks, it's Marianne Holland, board chair for the Reclamation Society. Really quick before the team jumps into the podcast, I want to let you know about a brand new web series called Confessions from the Friend Zone. This comedy follows the lovable and nerdy Angelique as she tries to escape the friend zone by using advice found on the internet. Confessions is a story written and directed by women that features a diverse casting crew. You can join in and learn more about this project and why we think it's so important by clicking the link in the show notes or by visiting the Story Geeks Facebook group. And maybe this is your chance to find out exactly what Chewbacca can do for your love life.
All right, it's nerd fight time. Let's talk about who's the best Batman. It's Batfleck. All right, we're gonna get to this best Batman argument. I'm looking forward to this, and I'm really stoked because we have an amazing moderator for tonight. Daryl, unfortunately, is very sick, but we have a fantastic fill-in. Mike Gordon from the ESO Network. Mike, how you doing?
Howdy. Happy to be here. I am sorry that it's under circumstances where Daryl's out of commission, but I am happy to fill in.
Yes, we are very happy to have you. So the rules of this, well, by the way, we have Justin.
Hello.
Yes.
Greetings.
And Sandra.
Hello.
It was going to be all four hosts. We're going to host tonight, but Daryl got sick, so we called in our best Daryl substitute.
No pressure.
No pressure. So tonight is a nerd fight, which means that we are all going to be arguing for a specific points. And in this case, we're arguing for the best Batman.
Ooh.
So Justin, who you arguing on behalf of?
I'm arguing that Christian Bale's portrayal of Batman is the best.
Oh, that's going to be hard to beat. Sandra?
Well, I think it's important to say that we are not including Kevin Conroy in this.
Yes, we're not including Kevin Conroy. That's really important because Mike actually, before we started the show, brought that up, is Kevin Conroy wins.
Yes.
And that's probably true, which is why no one can
and I
argue for him.
I think we all win just because Kevin Conroy did portray Batman.
Right. I think you're exactly right.
Fair enough.
And Sandra, who are you arguing for?
I am arguing for my first Adam West.
Oh, yes, Adam West, the classic 66 Batman. And I will be over here arguing for the man who just put down the mantle, Ben Affleck. Batfleck.
Batfleck.
So having said that, we're going to have 3 different rounds. We will basically each be able to present an argument on behalf of our Batman. And then we'll also be able to rebut the other 2 people with their points. So we have point, counterpoint. And then Mr. Mike Gordon will award points. He'll reward 2 points to the person he thinks had the best argument and 1 point to the person he thinks had the second best argument and 0 points at all to the person with the third best argument.
Just a sad trumpet.
Just a sad, yeah. Wah, wah. And we're going to do 3 rounds of that. So we'll do 3 rounds of that, and then after 3 rounds, one of the competitors, the lowest scoring competitor, will be eliminated, and that will move us into the moderator round, wherein Mike Gordon will ask a last moderator question, and those 2 people will have to answer it,
and Mike will choose the winner from there. As always, you can always vote in our Facebook group for the person that you thought won. But this will be the way we do it. Are you guys ready for this?
Ready to throw down. Just kidding.
Sandra already punched Justin in the face on the way into the studio, so it is very contentious.
And there's no way to prove it on a podcast.
Right.
I can't say, look what you did. It's
I know. It's just the pain in your voice.
And I know that you all can't see me, but just know that I am silently judging you.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh, that's terrifying. Actually, it's like being in the geek seat all over again. And Mike, before we get started, Mike, why don't you tell the listeners a little bit about yourself and a little bit about like what you're associated with and what you're up to these days?
Well, I am a writer, publisher, and also a podcaster. I am a co-host on the Earth Station One weekly podcast and part of the ESO Network. I dabble in a lot of other podcasts, and of course I have my writing of the most popular, I think, of which, or most common that people know me from, is Tiki Zombie, which has been going on for over 5 years now. Wow. Okay. Nice. So yeah, and I'm a huge Batman fan. So there are, yes, Batman is a character that I've followed since I can remember. I have followed every incarnation of him. I've read the comics. I've done so. So I know my Batman. So and I also, in my head, I'm just going to have to sort of forget the pros and cons of each that I have personally. So that's going to be probably the most difficult part of this. But I am very eager. I think all of them have pluses to them. So I'm kind of eager to see what you guys come up with.
Excellent. It sounds like we're gonna have a lot of fun.
Yeah.
we might get bloodied up in the process, but we are gonna have lots and lots of fun. So I'm gonna hand over the reins to Mike, and Mike will lead us through this nerd fight. You guys ready?
Yeah.
I'm ready.
All right.
All right. Well, we're gonna start where I all began as far as the live action goes in terms of the '60s. We're gonna go back to the '60s. Woo! Sandra, this is your first. You go first.
All right. Well, first of all, I am nervous, but I will say I have loved Adam West since I was a kid, and I would catch all of the reruns on TV. I just fell in love with this show. I think Adam West as Batman is superior. I think what he does as Batman, he brings this tongue-in-cheek style. We have 3 seasons worth of villains. It's full of just colorful, over-the-top hijinks. It's totally surreal. It kind of makes fun of itself, but not to the point where I think it's degrading. I think what West brings to his Batman, he can say things with a straight face, things like some days you just can't get rid of the bomb. And he, but he delivers it with a straight face. And he is truly a hero, even in the small ways. Like I was watching some episodes recently where Catwoman is about to make a phone call, and he makes sure that the people whose phone she's calling from that they get paid a dime so that they don't get billed. So he's truly a hero. I think he is being selfless in fighting crime, and we see that is he actually enjoys it. He enjoys fighting crime. He enjoys seeing that justice is served, and we see him as very intelligent as well. He is like that detective. He is very smart. He's talking about the different technology and different advances that they have. Also, he's like, in one episode, he's a lawyer. He's serving as a lawyer, but in costume. I know it just sounds crazy, but in that world, it made sense to everyone in that world. It wasn't weird. For us as the viewer, it's weird. But for everyone in that world, it made sense that Batman was wearing, tropical shorts as he was surfing. All of that made sense in that world. And what we see, not only Adam West and Burt Ward, but we also see players like Burgess Meredith, Cesar Romero, Julie Newmar. My favorite Catwoman is Eartha Kitt. We also see Vincent Price, Liberace. Just to think of that cast of people who came onto that show is pretty spectacular. And then we also see probably one of the first crossovers with the Green Hornet and Kato, played by Bruce Lee. which is,
Wow.
I mean, pretty spectacular.
I didn't know that Bruce Lee was on that
He
show.
was.
What?
But
Okay.
I mean, even to think of like one of the first, if not the first crossover,
Yeah.
that has a lot to do, like that's the beginning of the legacy, right, of all these crossovers that we see now. And Batman for that time, I mean, I know it was like obviously a lower budget. We have practical effects versus all of these crazy special effects that, you know, we're spoiled with now. So they had to make do with so much less, even in the third season, how things were so stripped down. But Batman had pretty fantastic gadgets, amazing fight scenes. And I know we kind of laugh at them now, but they were 100% tension building for the viewer. We didn't know, is he going to make it? Will he fall over that cliff? We don't know. Stay tuned till next week. Yeah, I was reading an article too where it refers to Batman 66 as having less in-jokes, less forced edginess, less maze-like continuity. And I thought, well, that's really interesting to view it that way, that this Batman, even though we might think, okay, the Batusi is kooky and it's wild, but in that world, again, it made sense and it was completely surreal, and it wasn't poking fun of itself. And, you know, we see a lot of that same humor, like the Batusi. We might say that's ridiculous, like Batman dancing, but we all enjoyed it when Chris Pratt did it in Guardians of the Galaxy. So some of those devices that they had in Batman 66, we see them playing out in these newer films that have, yes, like bigger budgets, better technology, but for that time, Batman 66 and Adam West, that's the best Batman.
So, how many points did you make?
Oh, really?
Oh, shoot. There's like 30 points. So do you have how many, like, do you have them divided up into?
I have it divided up into the pros for Adam West as best Batman, and then Adam West as best
Bruce Wayne.
Bruce Wayne.
Oh,
Yeah. Interesting.
Interesting. Okay, then you have a third point too.
Well, I'm not there yet.
No, I know. I'm just. That's a lot.
Yeah.
But it's not my turn yet. So.
All right.
It's not my turn yet.
To streamline your first argument, it would be.
Yeah. What would be the point? Like that first driving home point.
Oh my gosh, I think Adam West's Batman was important to the legacy of DC and for all like future DC films and Marvel as well. Jeez.
Okay, so the
I think
the 66 Batman was important to the full legacy of Batman to proceed in the future.
There's just so much more I can say. I mean, I think, okay, forgetting legacy.
Editor's note. Sorry, Daryl.
What I think the single point that makes Adam West the best Batman is that I feel like he was absolutely serious in his role of fighting crime, of being a true hero, and it being completely surreal, like this comic book world, just wild.
So he's a hero in a wild and crazy context, but it still works.
Yeah.
Okay.
Gotcha. Yeah.
All right.
It's difficult. It is really. I mean, when you're looking at, I understand it's difficult when you're looking at something that's so, you've got something that has so many aspects to it. It's kind of difficult to just whittle it down to, just one thing. But okay. So, but we've heard that. So we're now out of the 60s. And Justin, it is your turn.
So heading right into the early 2000s, staying on the vein of Batman being a hero, I think that Christian Bale depicts the selflessness and the sacrificing that I want to see in any hero over and over. And I think I feel it in his character as a real consequence of what he's doing, more than I have in any other superhero movie and more than I have in any other Batman adaptation. he talks about it's not who you are underneath, but what you do that defines you. And he does a lot to sacrifice himself for the better of others, to even make the name of Bruce Wayne a little bit of a joke, to play the playboy and make everyone underestimate him as just the billionaire up on a hill that hangs out with all the girls and buys whatever he wants, so that no one will suspect that he is this masked vigilante. So he's even taking one for the team socially and in the media. And when Rachel realizes who he is, he continues to sacrifice that potential relationship because of the greater good of Gotham. And at the end of The Dark Knight, there's that somewhat convoluted line about how Batman is the hero that Gotham needs, but not the one that they deserve. And he takes the fall for everything that Two-Face does. So there is just constant sacrifice. And then at the end of The Dark Knight Rises, he flies away with the bomb. And that doesn't end up being as much of a sacrifice as it at first appeared to be, but constant sacrifice. And I think that that basic element of putting others ahead of yourself is one of the things we've talked about as what describes a hero. And I believe that Christian Bale's Batman demonstrates that over and over more clearly than any other depiction of Batman.
Excellent. All right. That's man, this is gonna be tough.
That's what we always say after every argument. We love all these things. How do we choose?
It's tough. And then, to just sort of like forget your own, my own feelings. So
Yeah.
but raise some good points. So and both Sandra and Justin have mentioned Batman and a bomb. So so that's cool. Jay, I don't think you have that option, but
No. I have Batman and machine guns. Does that count?
But yeah, if you are ready.
I am ready. So I am choosing the newest Batman. Sadly, by the way, this is actually my favorite Batman. So sometimes I'm arguing things on this show that I don't actually think are the best things, but we do it for fun. In this case, it's a throne of lies that I sit on half the time. But tonight, that's not true. Tonight, Affleck is actually my favorite Batman. My third reason for that is because I believe that Ben Affleck as Batman, is the most like the Batman from my favorite, dare I say, the best Batman comics. So Batman, in my opinion, the best Batman, is very different from his counterpoint in Metropolis. He is not the guy who wants to trust everyone around him. He's not the guy who wants to believe in the betterment of a society through sympathy or empathy. He is somebody who believes in bringing the criminal element to justice by, if he has to, beating it out of them. So I like the grizzled veteran that we see in the Batfleck Batman, the one who sees an alien show up and instantly says, yeah, everyone thinks this guy could be God, but he also could be the devil. And so we have to do something about that. I think that Batman in this case, the way that he's portrayed here in BVS and unfortunately Justice League, that's the worst. But I think that he's portrayed as we've seen Batman in The Long Halloween, The Dark Knight Returns, even elements of Hush. The Batman who has seen a lot and he's almost seen too much and it's almost broken him, but he's still out for the good fight and he's still out to take care of business when he needs to. And he's carrying the weight of Gotham on his shoulders. And I think Ben Affleck covers that really, really well.
Wow. Okay. So like you just got to take it in and go, yeah, but
Exactly. Being a moderator is the best and the worst. Is what it ends up being.
And the nice thing is you have the final say.
Right. That's true.
That's true.
I guess, Jay's a little bit under handicap because his Batman is the one that we've seen the least of. So
yeah, exactly.
Only in
one of the movies he's in is horrible.
He's in 3 movies, right? So
he's in 3 movies.
Yeah, he shows up in
He's in
Suicide
BVS,
Squad,
Justice League, and yeah. You're right. He has like
okay, so you lose a point for not knowing that.
Yeah, that's true. I do lose a point there.
All right, so now we start with rebuttals. So, Sandra, we'll go back to you, and yes, you can rebut the other 2 arguments.
All right. So, to Batfleck, I would ask, where is his moral compass? He's using guns. He's ready to kill Superman for no real reason that if he had just had a conversation with him, could have resolved the issue, you know. Just talk to the guy.
We can talk it out.
I mean, just to find out that he's not evil, right? But he's so angry to the point that he's ineffective. And Wonder Woman manages to steal from the world's greatest detective? I mean, I don't know. He's better than that. So for Bale, first of all, the voice. I mean, first and foremost, you want your superhero to be understood, right? So just from a viewer perspective, the voice was a bit much.
Are we talking about Bane or Batman at this point?
Well, honestly, at that point, I'm like,
we'll get there.
When we got to Bane, I'm like, oh, well, I guess they made Bale look better. I don't know. But he's completely overshadowed by the Joker. And he does have an issue with his morals, but not to the degree I think as Batfleck. But overall, you know, he's just a dull bully. And with West, we see that he's actually enjoying fighting crime. That is his heart's desire, if we could call it that. He ultimately wants to seek justice without necessarily shooting people with machine guns. And, you know, he doesn't seem like he's holding a grudge. Like what he's been through has led him to the point of just wanting to always seek justice. And he's not overshadowed by his villains.
Interesting. Okay. Justin, how do you answer that?
I am going to answer this with the Goldilocks argument.
Is he just right?
Okay.
I'm going to say that your Batman is a little too light. Your Batman's a little too dark, and my Batman is just right. So, I mean, that's fundamentally what it comes down to for me, that the Batman that Christian Bale portrays, there are elements of humor, there are elements of action, there are elements of mystery and intrigue and romance, and then there's also darker elements. There's different themes going on. I feel like we get to go on a journey with him through despair and disillusionment as a well-rounded character. But there is still that a little bit of joy and a little bit of hope that he's doing this for the right reasons. And it ends, with him getting the girl to a certain extent, which, wasn't really the point of any of that trilogy but it shows that, I don't know, there's a place that he was able to go to after going to the dark place of being the Batman, and come back as what seems like a whole person. So yeah, the Goldilocks argument. I just like that hashtag. Hashtag Goldilocks argument.
Hashtag Goldilocks.
All right, and last but certainly not least, Jay.
It might be least. So I think, Sandra, you talked a lot about this Batman that was setting us up for future Batman. And I think even as a kid, when I go back to thinking about this series, even when I was a kid, even as a kid, I couldn't get past some of the kookiness. You talked about kookiness?
Oh, yeah.
Some of the kookiness was just like, it's one thing to be like, okay, we're going to jump in here and it's going to be kind of ridiculous and there's going to be these ridiculous costumes. But you said it. He's wearing trunks when he goes swimming.
Yeah.
He's literally dancing in an episode.
And
not
so
as
is
Bruce Wayne.
Star-Lord. So is Star-Lord.
Yeah, but that Star-Lord that's with his character. That's in alignment with his character. This Batman and his dancing and his shark repellent, it just gets too kooky. I don't mind a little kooky in the Batman, but too much kookiness creates a different character for me. And so I have a hard time with that. Because I love Batman so much that when it goes over the top, it's a little bit too much. So that's my rebuttal for Sandra's comment. Justin, here's the problem with making the Batman is a superhero super argument. That's Superman. So when we want to see the Boy Scout, we want to see Superman. We don't want to see Batman. I feel like one of the elements of Batman that makes Batman special is this question of how far should he be going? And sometimes he's too grizzled and he's maybe pushing it a little farther than he should, and sometimes he's kind of more of a Nightwing kind of character where he's ramped it back a little bit. But the whole thing we want to see with Batman is not a Boy Scout. We want to see a dude who is wondering where that line is. So that's my rebuttal for Justin.
Okay. Wow. So now I got to sift through all that. It's you guys all made really, really good points. So this is difficult. And it's what makes it really difficult is if there was one clean definition of who Batman is, then it would be easy, right? Because you'd just be like, oh, well, that's this actor's doing it and this actor's not doing it. But there's so many different interpretations and versions of Batman. And it all depends on a lot depends on what you think of when you think of Batman. I don't know how I should do this in terms of awarding points as far as who I should name 0, 1, 2.
Yeah, name 0 first.
So should I start with 0 first?
Or actually, maybe start with 1 first, then go 2, and then we'll just kind of know who the 0 is.
Okay, so all right, so I'll do the 1 point first, right? So as far as the 1 point goes, I'm going to give that to Sandra.
Yay!
The point that she made that I thought that really hit for me, and she said it a few times, was that Batman. This is a Batman that fits in with this world that they've created, and for this world, that you couldn't put Christian Bale in that world. It just wouldn't work. You couldn't put any hardly any other actors into that world and make it work. So Adam West did that and did that as good as you can do it. So I like that argument that for this world, that is the perfect Batman for that world. And then I'm also so that gives us down to okay, so now we're between Justin and Jay.
Starts with a J.
I already feel bad about this.
I know, right? Well, and I got to tell you, Jay, the one thing, you did make a decent point about Batfleck being a Batman that matches a lot of the comic Batman.
Oh yeah.
So, however, that's only the recent era. You look at the Adam West during the 60s, that was pretty much the way Batman was being written then. And the same thing I would say with Bale. It gets a little difficult because, like I said, there's so many different interpretations of the character. Well, it changes with generations, and we're talking about 3 different generations of Batman. So. So I think that while, yes, currently I think Affleck is the Batman that we get that matches what's in the books and the current books, or maybe even the books over the last, we'll say, 15, 20 years. I certainly don't think that applies to the 40s or the, 60s or whatever. So, and then plus, I can't go against the Goldilocks argument. That's just solid.
I created a hashtag for my argument.
Oh my gosh.
So Justin gets the 2.
Nice.
Thank you, sir.
Poor Batfleck. Just kick him while he's down.
It's that gif where it's
well, like I said,
darkness.
he does have a little bit of handicap going into the fight. So
yeah, it's true.
All right, But, this is only the first round. So there's still plenty
more
of
zeros to get.
there's still plenty of fight left. So, all right. So now we will go to round 2. And Justin, what is your argument for Bale in this case?
I think that this Batman, Christian Bale, lives in the most well-rounded, fleshed-out world. I loved the justification and internal story logic of where does all this tech come from? Oh, of course Wayne Enterprises would have an R&D area that they have just mothballed a bunch of experimental technology, and he would be one of the only people that have access to it. I love that he has a cowl that he ordered overseas in huge mass quantities to make it seem like there isn't, this isn't being used for just one guy, that he separated the pieces to further hide it. And then just things that you wouldn't know unless you watch the special features, but they invented a martial arts style. They invented a martial art for this movie. It's called Casey. And if you watch some of the special features or just pay close attention to some of the incredible choreography in the fight scenes, there is a basic fighting stance of having your hands behind your head and swinging your elbows wildly. And it sounds really sloppy and silly when you say it that way, but it is brutal to watch it on screen. So just finding the logic and the fleshed out world, and even the work that the production team in that sense did to how would someone fight multiple people close quarters. And Batman Begins ends with I think it's Batman Begins ends with Wayne Manor burning down, and they decide to rebuild it, but do some work in the foundation, and build the Batcave that way with total justification for how someone could get work like that done by reinforcing the foundation. So I am just going to say that the fleshed out world between the tech, the martial arts, and the story logic of where the Batcave and everything could come from, I love it.
Okay. All right. Jay, you're next.
All right. So from world building to just more of single shots. So I want to draw your guys' attention to 2 different parts of the Batfleck era that I believe are 2 of the best examples of Batman in film. The one comes from, quite frankly, a film that I strongly dislike, which is Justice League. I know, Mike, you like Justice League, right?
I do. I think like is a good word there.
Yeah.
So, but yes.
And I'm not super against it, but one of the coolest shots in Justice League is when Batman is basically repelling from the rock face, and he swings across in this giant kick, and it looks like it just the page of a comic book just came to life in this gorgeous shot. I'm pretty sure it is a Zack Snyder shot, and it is absolutely beautiful. So I love that shot. I think it's the best basically shot of Batman that I have seen on film or on TV. And so there's that. But the other scene that I want to point you guys to is, in my opinion, the best Batman scene in the history of cinema as well. And this is a longer scene, so it's not just one shot, but it is it's near the opening of BVS when we first see Ben Affleck as Batman. The 2 cops walk down into the underground area where the women are behind bars and they're about to be trafficked, and they go to let the women out, and the women say, "Nope, we want to stay where we are because we're protected from that thing." And they go, "What thing?" And then they turn, and Batman is up in the rafters, and it is filmed almost like a noir, like a horror noir. Mm-hmm. And the piece of filmmaking that is, and the kind of Batman that they're trying to portray, and pulling that off in that scene sets up the entire Batman mythology. All that you need to know is right there in that scene, and sets up Batman's character for the rest of it. And I just felt like it was such an amazing scene and filmed so beautifully. And we had Ben Affleck in those two shots.
Okay. All right. Man, this just doesn't get any easier as we go on, does it? All right, Sandra, finish it up this round.
I will say that Adam West is the most well-rounded Batman Bruce Wayne. I think I've already said a bunch about how he portrayed Batman, but how he portrayed Bruce Wayne, I feel like he was that smooth talker. He was that playboy, almost like a Tony Stark. He was very smooth talking. He's, quoting poetry, and he released his own song in character. And he was much smoother than the other, like Ben Affleck and Christian Bale, in portraying Bruce Wayne. I feel like he played that serious. He was still always an intelligent man, a rich man, a flirty man. He was all of those things. He didn't diminish himself or withhold anything of who he was except for his secret identity, but he was wholly himself, as opposed to some of the other Batmans who diminished their part of themselves to maybe throw people off. He didn't do that. He was wholly Bruce Wayne, and he was wholly Batman. Holy Batman.
Well
Nice.
done.
Nice.
That's a point
That
right
was
there.
my answer.
That's a point right there.
Wow, that was, I love the pun. I love the pun. All right, now it's rebut time.
All right, Jay, when we have to start looking at specific shots, man, we're hurting for examples.
Oh, no.
I'm trying to think a little bigger picture here, because I mean there's some incredible cinematography that comes out of the Christian Bale trilogy. I will be mentioning Mr. Wally Pfister again a little bit later, but yeah, I love that there are moments in that you are gravitating toward and that you appreciate, and I think that's wonderful. And I think I'm just arguing a little bit bigger, but that's not so much a rebuttal. It's just there. And Sandra, I think I love that Adam West maintained his character integrity of being Bruce Wayne and Batman. So I guess it's not even specifically a rebuttal. I guess I valued so much the sacrifice that he had to give up something to be Batman that I think that character feels a little less compelling to me when it's he can have his cake and eat it too kind of a mentality. Yeah. So I like that there's stakes and a cost for Christian Bale that it doesn't seem are as present for Adam West.
Yeah.
All right, Jay.
Justin is always the most diplomatic, nicest rebuttals of all time.
I know.
Jay, you're a total idiot, but I love you, man. every time. So my rebuttal for Justin is that you're right. They spend a lot of time in world building. The bummer is, I think it's maybe the worst world building, in my opinion, of all the Batmans we see, because it is the least stylized. So I understand that they're going for a realistic take. I totally get that. But one of the things we talked about when we talked about Gotham and Metropolis, especially with Eric Malinsky, is that I really value the art deco style of Batman, when it looks like he's part of this like gothic art deco, like dark city that kind of stands out to us because it's different and it's not something we see very often. So I love the realistic take on Batman. I actually really enjoy that, but I think they missed a big opportunity to add that to the Christian Bale trilogy. So they went deep with the world building, but I think that they missed some style points that are inherent in a lot of the Batman materials that we see.
You're making me sad we're not going to talk about Keaton and
I
Tim
know.
Burton.
I know. Because his is awesome.
Yeah.
And Sandra, here's the thing.
I'm gonna sit back. This is gonna be a while.
No, it's not going to be a while. It's going to be one sentence. I don't even remember Adam West as Bruce Wayne. That's how memorable he actually was.
Wow. But did you watch it?
I did.
He didn't drop the mic because these mics are nice.
Yeah.
That's right. I can make a noise like I dropped the mic.
So for Bale, I would say absolutely yes, like a fleshed out model. It kind of reminds me of how I play Minecraft. I'm in creative and I build this fantastic world, and there's no real like depth or anything interesting to it because I don't interact. And so it kind of reminds me of that, where again Jay brought it up about the world building. You have that, but there isn't that stylized look to that world. So that's my rebuttal for you. For Affleck, you know, the definition of clickbait is when you give them something interesting and you don't deliver. I think absolutely those were wonderful shots.
Yes.
It just didn't deliver on what it could have been, and the potential. And that's what's so disappointing about Batfleck is that it could have been something wonderful, but they just missed the mark. Clickbait. Hashtag clickbait.
Hashtag.
I felt that one right in the heart. That was right. The strike right. At the heart.
Woo! Shoo! That is a rebuttal. So okay, all right. Well, okay. So getting the 1 point in this round is going to be Jay. I like the idea of being stylized. And really, you made a point of 2 shots that were incredible. I remember them. They are 2 of the best shots, I think, that have ever been done of Batman. I would have doubled down and said included the fight scene where he saves Martha as well.
Yeah.
That's
but
a great point.
But
I missed it. Oh,
that's
I
okay.
missed it.
That's okay. So I'm like, but the solid imagery, and nobody really could rebut that. I mean, they tried, but they couldn't. All right, and so then that means it's down to Sandra and Justin, and I'm going to lean towards Sandra on this one.
Yay!
Yeah.
Justin, if you have to use special features as part of your argument,
I felt that burn.
I'm sorry,
Good
but
feedback. Good feedback.
I have to deduct a point for that.
My wife would probably agree with that feedback too. So.
And plus Sandra's original point that with the Adam West portrayal, we get probably the most defined Bruce Wayne out of any of the ones that we're talking about today. I think is solid, and neither one of you really had a good argument against that. So, and Jay, just because you can't remember it doesn't mean it didn't exist.
This is true.
All right.
Sandra's 2 moments ended with "Holy Batman" and hashtag clickbait. So
True,
I think
true.
she deserves every single one of
those
those
were
points.
earned points.
Yes,
Absolutely. Yeah.
Absolutely. All right. So that means, wow. All right. So we've got a 3rd round, and Jay can start us off.
And just so I'm recapping correctly, and maybe you guys can correct me if I have the score wrong, but it sounds like we have Justin 2 points, Jay 1 point, Sandra 3 points.
That's correct.
Yes.
That is correct.
Oh, so we're going into this final
Did you
round.
count your negative point?
No, I'm never counting those points. All right. So am I up first?
You are up first too. Yes.
Okay. So I hate having to defend Batfleck because I think he did such a good job. But let me say this: the problem with Affleck's Batman has nothing to do with Ben Affleck. It has nothing to do with him as an actor. Affleck, in each of the movies that he appears in, he makes those movies better, and he's oftentimes the best parts of those movies. So as much as I have issues with Justice League, and as much as I actually enjoy BVS, I realize that there are big problems with both of those films. But guess what? They have nothing to do with Ben Affleck as Batman. He is fantastic in all of those areas. These are all writer, director, and studio problems. Batfleck improves those films. Bale, West, they don't improve their respective films. They fit into the role that they're supposed to play. They don't improve them. They fit into the roles they're supposed to play. And one could make an argument even about Christian Bale that as soon as we get past the best film in that trilogy, basically, Batman is not even the lead character in that film. And it's the best film in that series. So when it comes to Bale versus Affleck versus West, I really strongly feel like Ben Affleck brings the most to those films. He's the best Bruce Wayne, in my opinion. And I think it's a little bit because Ben Affleck is sort of Bruce Wayne in real life to a certain extent. But I just feel like, and when Bale tries to sell Bruce Wayne, I just feel like he is really trying to act into that role. I think he's much better Batman than he is a Bruce Wayne. But Affleck improved his films. Affleck really improved his films, in my opinion.
Okay. All right. Sandra, you're next.
Okay, so I'm going to talk about two things. One, the type of humor that we see in Batman 66 and how we appreciate it today. So going again to Tony Stark and to Star-Lord, the types of behaviors that they exhibit are exactly what we see in Adam West's Batman. We see this billionaire playboy who is just unabashedly a player. He's just 100% in for it. And there's nothing that he is going to shy away from as far as just owning who he is as Bruce Wayne and that player and that super smart guy. He does not shy away from that. Again, also to like the Batusi with that was an intentional ploy. So him dancing wasn't for the sake of just dancing. So for that, we appreciate what Star-Lord did, and it was hilarious. But it was also a scheme. So I think what we see today, we can point back to Batman 66 and say, hey, that was there in those 120 episodes. And the other point I want to make is Adam West is a legend. So when Christian Bale and when Ben Affleck pass, they aren't going to be remembered as Batman. They're not going to light up LA City Hall with the bat signal for them. Adam West is everyone's Batman.
Ooh, wow. All right, Justin.
All right. I'm going to take pretty much the exact opposite approach that Jay took. And I am going to sing the praises of every last person involved in this trilogy. So, I mean, we have maybe less well-known, I already mentioned his name, Wally Pfister, the director of photography that got the dim lighting and the shadows and the oranges and every single color and texture of that trilogy captured so beautifully. We have Hans Zimmer, who made a score and a soundtrack that is so iconic and powerful and makes you feel exactly what's happening. We have a supporting cast that involves Michael Caine, Liam Neeson, Katie Holmes, Maggie Gyllenhaal, Gary Oldman, Cillian Murphy, Morgan Freeman, Heath Ledger, Aaron Eckhart, Tom Hardy, Anne Hathaway, Joseph Gordon-Levitt. The list goes on and on. And it's been said that a hero can only be as good as his villains are bad. And Christian Bale was faced with one of the greatest villains in cinematic history, Heath Ledger's The Joker, winning him the posthumous Best Supporting Actor Academy Award. Each of the villains represent some different fundamental element that has to be overcome by Batman or Bruce Wayne, whether it's Ra's al Ghul having to overcome this trust and betrayal issue, Scarecrow, just fear, Joker, chaos, Bane, just an unstoppable force. So not to begin my rebuttal early, but unlike the Batfleck argument that we just heard, that the whole studio writer-director held the movie down, everything about these Christian Bale Batman movies made it better.
All right. So, Jay, time to rebut.
All right. So, when it comes to Sandra's point, first, she's still trying to defend the indefensible Batusi. So I just want to put that out there. It's already been said. And I think that you made the comment, Sandra, that Adam West is everyone's Batman. Mm-hmm. He's not my Batman. So take one off the board. And then Justin. Let's get to Justin here real quick. I agree with Justin 100%. Everyone else involved in those films is amazing.
Oh, yeah.
They're all fantastic. I would have loved to see all those people with Ben Affleck, and it would have been better. In fact, the really crazy thing about Bale, and he is a fantastic actor. If you look at all the Oscars he's done, he's up for another Oscar this year. He by the time you listen to this, you'll know if he won it or not, and he has a pretty darn good chance of getting it. But I still think he gets a little lost in these films, and it's because everyone else around him is awesome, and I'm not sure he's bringing all of his A game like Ben Affleck.
Whose name begins with an A. All right. It's my turn, and I already gave away some of my rebuttal, and I regret that now in hindsight. But for Jay, throwing the studio and the writer and the director under the bus doesn't build an argument. It just excuses some of the weaknesses. So, and then Sandra, I don't know how to rebut yours. The putting the bat signal on LA City Hall, that was a pretty powerful image. So, I think that as an icon, Adam West is something really special, but when we're talking about the character of Batman, I don't think that his portrayal will be as remembered in a generation as some of the ones, even as Batfleck, who could easily be confused with the superior Batman cowl of Christian Bale.
You salty dog, you. All right, so I am just going to say, when you have to point to saying, well, it wasn't his fault, and it's the studio and it's everyone around him, that's a victim mentality, sir. And I think it's like a shoulda, woulda, coulda. It just shows that it didn't work. I agree with you, Justin. Hans Zimmer's score is fantastic. It is the one redeeming thing. Actually, for Batman versus Superman, I love that score as well. And you're absolutely right. There was a fantastic cast. But again, he got overshadowed by a lot of those big characters, especially Heath Ledger. So I think ultimately, if we're talking about the films, and we can, have a different argument, but if we're talking about the best Batman who got overshadowed, it wasn't that they brought him up. It was that he just was not the star. People quote the Joker, and that's what they remember. So that's my rebuttal.
Yeah.
Okay, first of all, you all are not making it easy by constantly in your rebuttals saying how much you agree with everybody.
We're holding hands too, just so you know.
Yeah.
We're still working toward the fight part of Nerd Fight.
Yeah, exactly. Justin gives us a hug after every argument he makes.
Oh, I'm gonna miss that. All right. Well. All right, so I'm going to give the 1 point to Justin. Justin gets a point for that argument.
For arguing not for Batman.
Sorry,
I had to slip it in there. I had to do it.
No. It's fair. It's fair. But I'll get to the reason, the rationale behind the other two. My other decision. So Sandra gets 2.
Yay!
She gets 2 points for 2 reasons.
That's been a good show, Mike. Talk to you later.
Oh, he just hit unfriend on Facebook. I saw.
She gets 2 points for 2 reasons. One, because she said she pointed out that Adam West's iconic, for 40, 50 years, he's been Batman. He's been known as Batman. I mean, to your point, Jay, even if when Sandra said he's everyone's Batman, he didn't mean that everybody loves him as Batman. He mean that he is the Batman for everyone, the everyman. At least that's why I took it.
Yep.
And I know she's not going to argue because so I had to, and also Jay, the argument that you're using for Batfleck, it can also be used for George Clooney. So it just
Oh no!
But the nipples.
so I can't give you points for that, man. So it's the Clooney argument.
Yeah. So like Ben Affleck, I'll just retreat.
You did have the toughest job. You did have the toughest job.
It's true. But I'm glad that I get to listen to the final argument and not participate. I'm happy about that.
Okay, so now it's down to Justin and Sandra, a.k.a. Bale versus West, which is going to be a tough fight. And I am going to think of a question. Actually, I think I've got one.
Ooh, nice.
Yes, I do have one. And both of you have kind of alluded to it in some of your other arguments, but we're just going to double down on this in particular, because a hero and an actor is only as good a lot of times as the people that are around him, and that a hero is only as good as the villains that he fights. So we're going to base this question on how basically how each one of them, Bale and West, stack up against the villains that they face as Batman. And the highest scoring person is going to choose whether or not you want to go first or second. Ooh. So, Sandra, that's you. Is it going to be ladies first or Justin?
Let's give it to the gent.
Okay. All right. So now the question once again is, how do these respective actors, Bale and West, face off, add up to their villains that they face? Like, how do they react to that? Which one is the better one?
I think that just zooming in on one moment in The Dark Knight, the interrogation room scene between Batman and the Joker is a masterclass in visual storytelling and also having a complete story arc within a scene. I think that moment between those two actors at the top of their craft is something that can be studied for acting and directing and all kinds of different things. So just using that as an example, I would say that Christian Bale measures up very nicely to even one of the toughest competitions of acting against Heath Ledger. If in that scene we were unable to believe Bale as Batman and believe him as a force, even one that's being challenged, I think the rest of the movie would have folded from there. So I think that just using that as a tangible example, it shows that Bale can measure up to even the most formidable foe. And Bale's Batman is broken over and over. He's broken physically by Bane. He's broken psychologically by Scarecrow. His worldview is broken, maybe even shattered by the Joker and Two-Face's actions. But he keeps going. And I think it's that character, that actor's perseverance in the midst of that immense opposition, and his ultimate overcoming of each Herculean task that makes him not only the hero that we need, but also the one we deserve.
I've heard that somewhere before.
Oh.
All right, Sandra, what about you? What about Adam West versus the Batman villains of the 60s?
Well, I think what we have with Adam West is not just one spectacular villain, but a handful and more spectacular villains. So we can look at the Joker, and with Cesar Romero, we have someone who is just a straight up menace. You know, he lives up to the name Joker. He isn't as sad and broken as Ledger's Joker. And of course, fantastic acting. But Batman does go toe-to-toe with Adam West's Batman goes toe-to-toe with that Joker. But he also has Burgess Meredith, who I think is a fantastic actor. He's a refined penguin, and he's just plotting and small, and they go toe-to-toe. So that's another fantastic villain. We also have Catwoman, and my favorite is Eartha Kitt as Catwoman. She's almost Shakespearean in the way that she communicates in her lines. It's almost like she's a Shakespearean actress. She's flirting with Batman. If we think of the time of the 60s, what that meant culturally for an interracial flirting to be happening on camera, even that, the statement that's made through having Catwoman flirt with Batman, that culturally was significant, not to the same degree as, let's say, on Star Trek with her and Kirk, but still, it was saying something for sure. And then we also have the King of Horror, Vincent Price, as Egghead, who is always terrifying. So it wasn't just one villain that Batman had to go up against, and an amazing villain. It was a lot of amazing villains, fantastic actors in their time.
Okay, those are both of your points made, and now it's time to rebut. And Justin?
I love the character design of the villains in West's Batman. I was just starting to list them, and I need to go back and watch Egghead because I can't even picture that. But yeah, the Joker, the Riddler, the Penguin, Catwoman, Egghead. As I recall, I was hardly ever truly worried for Batman. Part of it is the era that we were so sure that good would overcome. And even when we had to tune back in at the same bat time on the same bat channel, there wasn't a lot of suspense for me. And so I think that Adam West did measure up to those villains, but the bar wasn't very high. The stakes weren't very high. It wasn't very dire. And I think one of the more frightening moments when I think about just physicality and everything is being attacked by a shark. But and it's good that he had shark repellent. And so he measured up against that one as well. But I just don't think that there was much for him to overcome.
All right.
Sandra?
So I get to rebut?
Yes.
Okay. I have to say I love that you are commending Adam West's Batman by mocking him and his villains. Oh, it's a good thing he had repellent. So that was a cool tactic. I will say with Christian Bale's Batman, coming up to Heath Ledger's The Joker, that one scene was fantastic. After that, the Joker ran with it, and he was really the highlight of that film, and probably one of the most powerful scenes, aside from that one interrogation scene, is with him and Two-Face. Like, that one is pretty nuts, and it's, again, showing the power of Heath Ledger's The Joker, But aside from that, what other villain is there? I mean, that's the one that stands out. But what other villain was significant and worthy of Batman's time?
Wow. Okay. Wow.
I don't envy
right.
you, Mike. I do not envy you in this.
I think as far as the arguments go, I think I'm going to have to declare, yes, I'm going to have to declare the winner, Sandra, on this one.
Oh!
Yes.
Put the bat symbol. Put the bat symbol over Hollywood.
Yes. And it's tough. It's really tough. But I think the points that she made were more solid. And I think Justin, you could have gone for the jugular, and you held back a little bit. Because
sounds like something I do.
Because just in my own head, I was thinking, okay, and look, I love them both. I love them all. So this is coming from a place from love. But while you could argue, and her argument was that that West had more villains and better villains, defined villains. You could have argued that West acted the same to all of them and didn't change the scenes depending on which villain he was facing. And I think that would have sort of just crushed with the exception, of course, of Catwoman, because that's a different dynamic there. But so I thought that but otherwise, I mean, everybody did a tremendous job, and it was very close. So.
Excellent job, guys. That was fun. Mike, thank you so much for moderating. Sandra has the trophy, the non-trophy trophy that she is now carrying with her. And that means all of us have had a win. Sandra has no losses. I have now 2 losses.
Ooh.
Yeah, I've lost to Justin. I beat Daryl.
Yep.
And I've lost to Sandra and Justin. So there you go.
So Daryl's never won.
No, Daryl beat Scott Nicewander.
Oh, I haven't heard that one. Okay.
You haven't heard that one yet. He beat the Make It Better Aquaman.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Not that Scott didn't have some amazing choices. Like, Scott had some really great ideas for that film. But I felt like Daryl's story changes were superior. But that's a whole other podcast that you should go listen to. So I'm just selling it. Thanks again, Mike. Real quick, let all the listeners know where they can find your stuff.
Sure. You can find me at newlegendmike.com or, of course, earthstation1.com.
That's it for today's show. Special thanks to Mike Gordon from the ESO Network and the comic Tiki Zombie for joining us. If you want more content from the Story Geeks related to Batman and who's the best Batman, head on over to thestorygeeks.com. This week you'll find blogs from Ashley and Anthony, and if you head over right now and become a supporter of the Story Geeks for $2 a month or more, you'll unlock access to this week's Aftercast, where Mike Gordon will share his thoughts on who the best Batman is. Coming up soon on the Story Geeks podcast, we're digging into an entire season about Marvel, especially the MCU, leading up to and a little bit after Avengers Endgame. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on all that cool MCU content. If you enjoyed today's show or any of the Story Geeks podcasts, please share our show with a geek friend or review the Story Geeks podcast on iTunes, or do both. We love it if you do both. Thanks for listening in, and as always, question everything in your favorite geek stories and always seek the truth.